Same here.
Lazy bastards, go to Twitter.
Completely
live. Welcome. Another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report of episode 165. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News. Gus joined us live from the UK from Corruption and Boxing. Scorsese for LDBC fame, Lions Den fame, as well as Daniel from the Inscriber. What's going on, ladies and gents?
Evening all. It's good to be back after a little break for refreshing ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah, Took a week off. Give some time to relax and refresh. Get their mind settled, whatever. Plus, it was nothing really happening. In the aftermath of last week's show, so we kind of jumped the gun early 2 weeks ago to be caught up now. Again, if you Pound for Pound Box Report, for those who do not know, live YouTube show as well as podcasts and blogs discussing all things boxing. Motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. If you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, one main place you want to go to, that's the blog page, P4P.wordpress.com is the link. Check the right of the page. You will find links to the page of Pound for Pound Boxing Report pages on Tumblr, Facebook, G+, as well as the Twitter page, as well as where to listen to us, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio. And as a side note, I am personally a kind of part-time contributor to Ring News 24. Matter of fact, in the week off, I penned an article there on Ring News 24 regarding Naoya Inoue, Japanese junior bantamweight sensation Inoue, who we will talk about later on in the show. Let's get this episode started tonight. Recapping what went down last week. Headlined, of course, by Vasyl Lomachenko, WBO junior lightweight champion. Fought in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, defending his belt against Jason Sosa, Oxon Hill, Maryland, to be specific. Lomachenko had his way with Sosa, as I pretty much thought last week. Dominated Sosa, TKO 9. I will go to you on this one first, Gail, since it's been a few weeks since you've been on the show. Thoughts on the belt?
That fight, it was just a joy to watch for any fan of the sport, no matter what aspect of the sport you admire. You just have to sit there and watch and think to yourself, how in the world did this guy amass so much talent? It was truly amazing. You know, he's simply a wizard. There's a lot of jokes about fighting Lomachenko being like getting caught in the Matrix. And it is seemingly true that he can run rings around his opponents and play like he's a matador taunting a bull while they're just still trying to figure out their next move. He's out of the way. It's a master class. He should really change his nickname from High Tech to Master Class. And I told his publicist so after the fight. And it happily turned out to be the highest rated premium cable non-pay-per-view fight this year in the United States. I couldn't be more delighted to hear that, because everyone who even has even the slightest interest in boxing should not miss watching him. Dominant performance. You know, he finally put Jason Sosa, a perfectly skilled, adequate fighter, out of his misery. I mean, that was all there was to it.
I'll go to you, Scorsese, and then you, Daniel. Your thoughts on the fight?
Gail said it. Once you make your, it's two ways about it. Once you make your move to him, he's made 3 to get you away from him, and once you make the move to get away from him, he's made 3 to get back to you. And most fighters, after taking these angles, bouncing on their legs, they try to look for that quick break. That just don't come with him. Like, if you move, he moves with you, coming towards you. If you push him up against the ropes, he's fighting off the ropes. Next thing you know, you're headed to the ropes. It is spectacular what he's doing. I'm sold. I'm sold at the 130-pound division. I do want to see him and Corrales in that ring together. I just gotta say Corrales did go travel and knock out the #1 man. I'm gonna always be respectful of that. You know, that's something to commend. So those two, Corrales signing the Golden Boy, that fight right there is, you know, it's not much to break down on the fight. He just played with his opponent. Let's see if he can do it with Corrales, because if he can, it's just impressive to me. Great stamina, gaining power as he go up, footwork still phenomenal. I'm not saying like one punch power, but it's a few times Sosa took body shots and I could see his face melted, like they really did. It cringed on him. Lomachenko's taking the punch as well from Sosa, who's a good puncher. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch at 130.
You mentioned Corrales. I should add that news broke this week that Corrales did sign a promotional deal with Golden Boy. So hopefully we will see him fighting in the States soon. Daniel, your thoughts on Lomachenko's dominant display over Jason Sosa?
When I look at Lomachenko, the way he does things, he adds something to every single fight that he does. Now, in this fight, he added to me like that Maidana style overhand right that kept landing in Sosa's head. And he did a lot more showmanship in this fight. Like, he's done showmanship before, but this one, the blatant matador, it's really, really great to see that he's having fun in there, knowing full well that he's dominating the fight. But he's also engaging at the same time. Like, one of the things that people get on with Rigondeaux, Lara, is that they're dominant, but they're risk aversive. Lomachenko will look to press the action while still being defensively sound. And you saw in this fight, he moved away when Sosa tried to throw body shots, and he didn't let Sosa get more than 1 or 2 sequences per round where he looked good. And that wasn't the case. And unfortunately for Sosa, like, the only way to win it was he had to make it like a Salido fight. He had to get inside dirt, inside, really hit the body, and make sure Lomachenko couldn't move. And from round 1, you could tell he wasn't able to do that. Now, the counter, as far as power, you can tell Lomachenko has a bit of it. Like Scorsese mentioned, there are points where Sosa was getting hit really hard with the body. Sosa felt it, which is another showmanship, because Lomachenko at one point feigned that he felt Sosa's pain from the body shot. But it was a masterful, real good performance. It's something that should be commended. And like Gil mentioned, this did almost 900,000 viewers, which is really, really good for an HBO card that's non-pay-per-view. And like I said, I know we're going to speak to the rest of the venue, but that was a perfect cap to a pretty successful night, a really well-run card.
I'm going to you, Gus, your analysis of the fight, but I want to add a couple other questions to the discussion. During the bout, and especially after the bout, the HBO team, Lampley, Kellerman, and even B-Hop, they were basically anointing Lomachenko the new pound-for-pound king. Break down Sosa's win, and I'll ask you this question, and everybody else can follow up and respond if they want. Do you think Vasyl Lomachenko right now is the new #1 pound-for-pound boxer in the world? And they were mentioning possible opponents at 126, 30, 35. Who do you see giving Lomachenko his toughest battle? Let's just say from featherweight to lightweight. So first, your analysis is about your thoughts on this new anointing of Lomachenko as pound-for-pound top dog, and who's the toughest fight out there?
Mike, I think probably the most impressive aspect of the entire fight was probably Lomachenko's entrance music. Did any of you guys grasp what it was?
Oh man, I can't remember. I forgot.
Yeah, it was so it's actually the recording artist, it's somebody I knew back in the 90s, and the label as well. It was a track Club to Death by Rob D on Mo Wax Records, which is a massive label over in the UK. So when that came on, I was like, okay, that in his sort of Matrix outfit, I was thinking, all right, he's going to get down to some business here. You know, Mike, I'm not going to shit on Jason Sosa. Pretty much everybody has, you know, post-fight, they're all talking about, you know, he shouldn't have been in the ring, etc. You know, just a massive amount of disrespect. I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm a fan of Jason Sosa, and I will continue to be a fan. Yes, a fighter with a very limited schooling amateur background, only 3.
He showed more toughness and heart than Nicholas Walters did.
Yeah, you know, he was just, you know, horribly outclassed. There are aspects of his game plan, you know, you can be hypercritical and sort of micro-analyze it. You know, I didn't like the aspect of him sort of covering up so much, you know, not even looking. But it's difficult, you know, when you're fighting with somebody who allows you pretty much to do all the thinking, because he's pretty much one step ahead. He'll almost, and it's almost like you almost leading to your own demise, but he'll help you contribute. You know, it's a case of almost death by 1,000 cuts. In the absence of any sort of sustained punching power, he'll pepper you with so many shots, and it's a case of, you know, fighters are not going down, they're not being knocked out, they're being outclassed, compounding with sort of frustration. But I wasn't happy with the stoppage, Mike, and I've got to be honest, and I'll explain why. Now, Jason Sosa wasn't cut, so it's not a case that he was unable to see the action, nor did he suffer any sort of detrimental injuries that, you know, was impacting him fighting or may hinder him fighting going forward. And you've got to take into account that, you know, he's fighting for a world title. He hasn't been flawed before. At the end of the ninth, he threw the last sort of few punches, so it's not like he doesn't have the power to stay upright. And also taking into account that he knocked out Javier Fortuna in the 11th round. So yeah, from a puncher's chance, from that sort of standpoint, you know, I wasn't happy with it. It may have been that he would have been probably, you know, outclassed to the 12th round, but he's only one punch away from making history and fulfilling all of his goals. So from that standpoint, you've got to give him a chance, and he's. So I'm not sure whether the retirement was him expressing it to his corner, or it was more his corner saying, look, because I heard little elements, somebody saying that, you know, you've got to show me something or I'm going to pull you out. So clearly, you know, that they did try and advise him beforehand. Yeah, you know, Vasyl in this particular fight, what he showed me a little bit more, you know, his left hand to the body was working, you know, and he was, you know, applying that with some menace this time. You know, Sosa beforehand, I've seen him take a lot of, you know, body shots from Nicholas Walters, you know, some mean rights to the liver. Here it was the left, and it seemed to be, you know, troubling him a little bit from sort of round 6 onwards. You know, I didn't really like the showboating. Plus, Mike, you know, when he's almost looking over to the referee, you know, trying to referee the fight or he must dictate, you know, that's not really his jurisdiction. You know, just let the referee, and you just continue with what you're doing. You know, you're not the sole administrator of the fight. So, you know, little aspects I didn't like, but yeah, you know, he got the stoppage, and you know, there's a lot more fights out there for him at 130, which I'd like him to stay at.
Thoughts on kind of mantling the way, excuse me, not mantling, but the way the HBO team was anointing him pound for pound king. Do you agree with that, or do you think that there are still fighters out there, are things for him to prove before he's just before he's regarded as the next top dog in all of boxing, regardless of weight?
It's too soon.
I'm Gus first. Gus first.
You know, Mike, you know, Jim Lampley has almost got a fucking obsession with this pound for pound list that he pretty much, you know, he's almost fixated about talking about all the time. And we know that Roy Jones has already mentioned that that's pretty much his, you know, sort of top pound for pound fighters. So for them to take that stance, it doesn't surprise me. But if we break down his career and his resume, all right, he has achieved a lot in, you know, in a significantly less number of fights than others. And he has moved up a weight, but you know, he moved from 126, not fighting the best fighters at 126. Now, all right, there is an argument to say that if three of the belts weren't held by Al Heyman fighters, he probably would have stayed there. I've heard that sort of rhetoric been passed by somebody within his camp. But at 130 now, all right, he's fought, you know, Jason Sosa, two of his opponents who he did want to fight. But let's talk about why those fights didn't materialize when Bob Arum is offering derisory sums, an 8-to-1 ratio, you know, offering, you know, Corrales like between 115 and 150,000, what I'm hearing, compared to an 800,000 purse that Lomachenko is almost guaranteed. Then, you know, if you're Jezreel Corrales, would you accept a derisory sum, Mike? I wouldn't, especially after beating a pound for pound level fighter twice in Japan. So I'm glad, you know, he rejected the fight. And you know, why should Orlando Salido take a derisory? Salido doesn't need to fight him, Mike. You know, why should he be his bridesmaid, his window dressing, you know, for Vasyl to avenge a defeat? Nah. Salido beat him legitimately. Salido has other aspects that he may wish to pursue. So, but there are other killers at the division. You know, Miguel Burchell does have a fight, but you know, that is a fight I want to see him up against a proper puncher, somebody who has the hand speed, somebody who has the foot speed, who can fight on the front and back foot. And as I explained before, I think Burchell has the best educated left hand in the business. He can cycle between jabs and uppercuts and hooks at lightning speeds, and that will be a test against a legitimate 130-pound fighter. So there are fights. Corrales is out there as well. But as for pound, Mike, no way, not on the basis of his current resume.
Okay, first of all, do I still sound a bit choppy as I saw a comment? Okay, let me go off. You can let everybody else discuss the questions right now, and then I'll jump back in. Whoever wants to comment, please. I'll just jump out right quick and try to jump back in.
Well, we'll carry the ball for you, Mike, no problem. And there's plenty to talk about where it comes to Lomachenko. I think we're in agreement that pound for pound, top of the list, no. On his way there, if he keeps performing like he did Saturday, yes, he is on his way there. But he's not to his destination, not even close. Now, Gus, I would take a little issue with you about the fair and square description for what Salido did in his fight with Loma. Now, I happen to be a fan of Orlando Salido, but he's not afraid to come in heavy. He's not afraid to play dirty. And, you know, he's learned a lot of tricks. If you look up wily veteran in the dictionary, Salido's picture is next to it. And he got someone very green to the professional game when he fought Lomachenko. Lomachenko, now in hindsight, has commented about that and recognizes, hey, you know, it was like a college kid beating up a third grader. Well, now I've graduated and he seems to want another shot at him. That's a fight I'd welcome seeing. How about you guys?
Well, the pound for pound thing, like I said, it's too soon. It's too soon to put him number one. Just first on the amount of fights, even if you want to count the World Series of Boxing fights, there's professional resume. And there's also the fact that one of the things you have to look for is, can you unify a division? It's one of the things that is one of the things actually people tried against Chocolatito when he was called at one time like the number one pound for pound. In this case, well, featherweight, we've discussed the issues. It's true. If three of the belts weren't with Heyman, he might have stayed. But this one, he definitely has Burchell, which I would like to see. He's a guy that comes forward, has power in both hands, and has proven that he'll eat whatever he has to eat to land his punches. Then you have Corrales, who, like we mentioned, not only beat the number one guy for a while, Uchiyama, he beat him twice in Japan. So there's that aspect to it. And, well, the other one is Gervonta Davis. And that we're talking about green when it came to Lomachenko and Salido. That kid's way too green.
Yeah.
For Lomachenko at this stage.
Tank is in no way ready for Lomachenko. No.
No way. No. Even Floyd acknowledges it. Floyd said, I am not putting him in the ring with Lomachenko. Now, if he does do a unification fight at 130, then I could start hearing your discussions, because there's almost no other fighters that do what he does. Like Chocolatito has the work rate, but he's proven it in Quadras and the Runcible fight that you can hit him. You can touch him up. You can rough him up. Ward, he's the logical number one right now because he's been number two for a long time behind Floyd. But the way that some people still think that he lost to Kovalev, that puts it on the discussion. But no fighter does what Lomachenko does as far as balancing footwork, offense, and defense simultaneously. So he's not there yet, but give me to the end of the year. By the end of the year, that my mind may have changed.
That seems a little soon, given who he could potentially face, though, don't you think? I mean, it really is going to depend on whether he gets the right fights under his belt. Well, between now and number one. And I guess the question is really, what do those have to be? What does he have to do? Right this minute, someone says to you, what would it take for Loma to be number one? You know, what's the recipe in this cake that we're going to bake, the pound for pound cake? What does he have to do? Who does he have to be? Who does he have to fight?
I think it's better results at other divisions. Like we got the Kovalev war. You got that winner could face Petrov for the IBF title. You know, you're going to get a lot of props for doing that. He's going to sit around 3, 5, somewhere in there. He's going to have to, you know, have his seat like other fighters had their seat. Glad that, you know, it just is what it is. You could beat the Corrales, but if, like Gus said, if you're offering them crumbs and the cookie, then damn, you ain't gonna get opponents. That was great information here on this show, because that's like the fight I want at 130. I think, like Daniel was saying, the guy go to Japan and knock out the number one guy, then go back over there and say, okay, I beat you again. I kind of feel like you got to give him the number one in the division based on that, but him and Lomachenko should fight for that. And you know, okay. But is that the win? Look, it's just gonna have to sit behind some people. It's okay, you're high on the list. Just because it ain't one, don't mean you ain't a great fighter, right?
Well, and who would you rather watch? You know, who would you all rather watch? You know, the numbers HBO managed to rack up, you know, on really sort of a nothing boxing weekend for a lot of people, were very impressive. You know, Lomachenko is starting to be known as a guy that's very entertaining to watch. And you know, sheer performance, sheer record is one thing. We've known a lot of guys with great records who just simply haven't captured the interest of the fans. Lomachenko is just damned entertaining to watch. And he's by no means a knockout artist. And he's not a big guy. He's just dazzling to see what he can do. Even someone who isn't real sophisticated watcher has got to look on and recognize just what kind of a display of skills he's putting on.
That's
It's
why I like
just
this. I
impressive.
like the showboating. I liked it because
I did too.
people
I'm
need to
with
sell
you.
themselves.
Yeah, I agree. You know, he wasn't belittling Sosa at all. I certainly didn't see it that way. Some of the, you know, hand gestures and the, you know, misdirection and some of his dancing around, the Matador move was just genius from a sheer entertainment value. You know, boxing is entertainment. Come on, let's bear that in mind.
Gail,
You're paying for something that you're supposed to enjoy watching, and he brings it.
Okay, here's the thing. For me, I hope y'all can hear me better.
Much better, thank you.
In terms of Lomachenko, from a skill set perspective, there are few fighters like him today. The things that he does in the ring, no one really, well, outside of Regal possibly, maybe a handful of others, can do what he does. A spectacular talent. But just because he is extremely talented, I think those at HBO specifically and others are jumping the gun here at placing him above and better than everybody else. Resume does matter here. It's not just your talent in the ring. If that was the case, then Roy Jones would be considered the best. Prime Roy Jones would be considered the best pound for pound fighter of all time because he did things from an athletic standpoint that no one did historically. No one could do. You still have to fight the fighters and beat the opponents. Lomachenko right now, he still does not have that significant fight. And when you look at the landscape, particularly 30 and 35, there are too many potential fights and fighters out there that he has not fought yet. So he has to get in the ring and face these guys and beat these guys. You mentioned Corrales at 30. You got up and coming Gervonta Davis out there. I know he's not ready yet, but he's a talented fighter. You got Tevin Farmer is a fighter who I like a lot at 130. And we all know the lot at 35, the Mikey Garcias, the Linares, the Trouble Easter. So it's too many. He still has a way to go before Max Kellerman specifically can make the claim that Lomachenko, he would make him the favorite against everybody from 26 all the way up to 140, minus Terrence Crawford. Too soon right now to
Way too soon.
anoint Lomachenko as top dog. You were going to say something, Gus?
Yeah, can I just quickly address something that Gail pointed out to me before about the Lomachenko and Salido fight? I think Gail was alluding to that it may not have been legitimate due to a significant weight disparity. But this is my problem here, Gail. You're talking about a fighter who sincerely believes he's the greatest of all time. And we know that he's probably the greatest amateur of all time. So why should weight be an issue? Now, when Harry Greb challenged Gene Tunney, he was giving away 42 pounds. When Stanley Ketchel challenged Jack Johnson, he gave away 49 pounds and gave a magnificent display for about 13 or 14 rounds. I know he even floored Jack Johnson. So 10, 15 pounds should not be a factor for a fighter who we're talking about as one of the all-time greats. He should be able to overcome that. But what Salido, I think people are really underestimating what Salido was doing in that fight. He was cutting off Vasyly's movement. Every time Vasyly tried to spin away, Salido had actually anticipated his move and was moving diagonally to try and cut him off spinning. So it was actually very clever boxing if you really analyze it. I think it's got nothing to do with weight disparity. I think it was actually skill and pressure, and certainly old manning him a little bit, a fighter who was green. But it's a plan that backfired on Lomachenko. He was so supremely confident that he would win the belt. They chose Orlando. Orlando's people didn't choose him. So, people have got to, respect that victory.
In terms of the Salido bout, I had to step out because again, my mic was choppy. I apologize for that. He should simply fight Salido for this reason, in my opinion. If you're going to sit there and make a comparison between Lomachenko and Whitaker and talk about how he does this Perdell Whitaker matrix type stuff in there, if you're going to make such a comparison between him and Whitaker, Lomachenko ought to do what Whitaker did vis-a-vis Jose Luis Ramirez. As we all know, who folks who know your history, Whitaker fought Ramirez pretty young in his career, under 20 fights, in France. Lost a bout that many felt he won. He won the title. And what did he do as soon as he won the title from Haugen? He ran it right back with Ramirez and dominated him. Same scenario here. Lomachenko fought Salido young in his career, lost. He ended up winning a belt. He ought to do, if you're going to make a comparison between him and Whitaker, make a demand that he did what he do what Whitaker did. Run it back with Salido. I don't care if many people feel that he's the overwhelming favorite. That's still a loss. Avenge it. And then move on. And you can do whatever you want.
I see it the same way, exactly the same way. If there's any question on his resume, he needs to answer that question once and for all. And if it takes offering a big paycheck to Salido to do it, good for Salido. Cash that sucker and go do it.
90,000 is what they've been offering him. Would you accept that?
How much?
Oh, hell no, I wouldn't accept that.
90,000 scores, Stevie.
How much?
Well,
$90,000 is what they've offered him.
90,000. No, that's a joke. That's
yes.
No, I agree.
I thought they said like 600,000 he turned down.
Bullshit.
No.
Yeah. No, 90 is a joke. I agree. I consider that insulting. But
Yeah, they did
The
say
total
like,
purse was 650,000. I think Lomachenko would have got 5
million.
They did say what's his name? Igor Klima saying we don't need him anymore. Like saying you guys look, I don't think Salido will beat him again. I actually really don't. But look, forget Salido. I want to talk about what fighters today have to do. And I'm not accusing him. I'm looking at every fighter. But Lomachenko's doing something amazing to me, something mind-blowing to me. And in the era where we in, when you go up in weight, you retain stamina, you retain power, you gain more power. He's becoming a bigger puncher before our eyes. I don't know if people remember, but he put Martinez on his back asleep. He made Walters was walking to the corner hurt. People say, hey, why'd he quit? He wasn't hurt. No, he was hurt. And Sosa last night was beat up from pillar to, not last night, but Saturday, pillar to post, body shots, eye swole up. And I'm saying, yo, I know the WBO doesn't enforce VADA, but I love what the WBC is doing, making all their fighters do that. And I think Lomachenko, if he do himself the favor of doing that now, can't question anything of what he's doing. Because if he's naturally doing this, I kind of agree with HBO. He gonna be that number one guy because this dude is amazing, bro. Like he's making 4 moves to your 1, and 4. That's it. What it is. What it is. When they give him the piece, okay, let's say we're playing. What's that game where you stack up the checker pieces, connect 4? You get 1 piece and he gets 3 on his, and that's what it is. You can't win, and he's kicking their ass. And if he's doing this naturally, it's some of the best shit I ever seen. Period.
Well, it's a matter of pride, though. Like I know Klimas, unfortunately, Klimas and Bob want to do it cheap when it comes to it, and 90,000 is a joke for Orlando Salido. He probably makes more in Uber in a year. But the whole situation when it comes to it is it's a matter of pride. Yes, this guy took away your perfect record. And if you're supposedly the greatest of all time, what you want to proclaim yourself the greatest of all time, we'll put it to you this way. Jordan never lost the finals.
Hey, he made him need a sports psychologist. That's what he made him do. Go hire a sports psychologist.
Yeah, and that's the whole area, and that's something that pride has to go into it in defeating Salido now. To say because unless he makes a drastic jump in weight, that question is going to follow him. It's going to follow him. People are going to ask, "Why don't you just rematch Salido? Why don't you just rematch Salido? Take care of it." It's going to hound them as much as Top Rank, Eric Klimas, Papa Lomachenko want to dismiss it. It's going to hound him until people will say he manned up and is choosing to avenge his loss.
Exactly. Let's move on and talk about other fights on that same card. I'm going to combine two fights in one here. Oleksandr Usyk defending his cruiserweight title against Michael Hunter, won by decision, and probably in the bout that was just as impressive, if not maybe more. Oleksandr Gvozdyk stopped Yunieski Gonzalez, I believe, in 3 rounds, dominated him really from jump.
No, wasn't as impressive.
Close to it. Surprised many. I thought Gonzalez was going to give him a fight, actually. So I was a bit surprised. Since you spoke of Scorsese, I'll go to you first and going to combine 2 fights into one here. Talk about Usyk's win over Hunter, which a lot of people kind of left with like, he won, but kind of bored them. And then Gvozdyk, his win over Gonzalez, which to me, I thought it was going to be a good fight, but it was easy work.
First of all, you don't know what's gonna come out of Yunieski Gonzalez after you've been in 2-3 back-to-back wars. That chin is finally on the hey, I'm ready to break. Just push me over the counter, bing, on the floor. And that's what Gvozdyk got. People said Gvozdyk was impressive versus Isaac Chilemba. I personally did not see that. I didn't see the shutout the boxing scene was scoring. I seen the round 5 where Chilemba almost shut him out. I seen the round 1 and 2. I seen this dude had to see an older fighter with less power, smaller fighter, had to break down for him to build up. And I'm thinking to myself, if he was so impressive, why didn't they put him in with another Chilemba type fighter? And we saw they didn't do that. They put him in with damn near the exact opposite. And he looked, he stopped him in 3 rounds. He stopped what's the name, quit in like 8 rounds. So that's almost like 3-to-9 ratio type deal. You was about 3 times more impressive versus this style of fighter. And what we had was one guy get to play cat and mouse, but hey, once the cat get too close, that mouse just fire off, and the cat is not tough no more. The cat's broken. His cornermen ought to be ashamed to call themselves cornermen, and how I feel about it. What are you working on with him? This guy was coming in throwing punches from his. I can't call it. Yunieski Gonzalez looked horrible. I'm glad they threw the towel in for him. He was taking a beating, didn't it? That was ridiculous. From round 2 on, you just said to yourself, yo, what is he with? How are you doing this? Well, how are you training? But I don't think we see him no more. I don't think you could put him in there with nobody else no more and let him live off, hey, he fought Pascal close and something like that. I don't think he continued to live off that. I did kind of think he was going to give him a fight if he would have been himself, but this guy, man, he looked horrible. I seen look bad. As far as Usyk, he impressed me. I don't know what people were talking about. You become the puncher when your guy's the boxer in there. You didn't know what Michael Hunter was bringing to the table. I didn't know what he's bringing to the table as much. I thought he's going to actually come forward a little bit more. He stayed out there and he was popping the jab, right hand, straight punches to the body. Made Usyk adjust to that, and Usyk just started walking forward, slipping the jab and working. And I was just saying to myself, that shit is impressive. That's what I've been wanting to see from him. I wanted to see during the Gvozdyk fight, he looked bigger than Gvozdyk. I wanted to see him sit on some punches. When Gvozdyk came on the inside, let him get there and beat him up and tell him not to come back again, or he gonna get some more of that shit. And that's what I kind of seen with Usyk, and it impressed me. Did he have major power? No, but he had enough to make Michael Hunter say, okay, he won. And the referee should have probably, both fights should have probably been stopped. Maybe all 3 fights should have been stopped a little earlier. But and all around, I would say Lomachenko best performance. Usyk's second performance because I saw more from him. And then based on the opponent, Gvozdyk the last are the best performances.
And I'll just open up for everybody here, else here in the panel in the hangout. Please comment on Usyk's win over Michael Hunter, as well as Gvozdyk, his win over Yunieski Gonzalez.
Usyk is still rough around the edges, but you can see him learning. You can see the progress he's making. And as long as progress is being made with him, I'm very happy with that. Hunter did a fine job. I welcome seeing him again. Usyk did adjust to him, though, very, very nicely. And he said after the fight, once I saw what he was doing, I said, okay, I'm going to, adjust the plan. And that's not always easy for a boxer to do mid-fight or early in a fight. And he did do that. He is definitely benefiting from the fact that the cruiserweight division isn't ultra competitive. He wants to try and unify the division, get all the belts. Little bit tough, but we'll see if they can negotiate getting him all the right fights or if the belts shift around the right way. And then he absolutely intends to move up to heavyweight at that point. And he's made no secret of that. He did a meet and greet for media in Los Angeles, and somebody said, well, do you think you're going to have trouble, competing at that weight? And he says, nah, just going to pack on some muscle, not a problem. I mean, he just shrugged that, nah, no big deal. I'm fine making cruiserweight now, but I'll be fine at heavyweight too. So it's going to be interesting to watch him. I thought Gvozdyk was very impressive. I did think Gonzalez was going to give him more of a fight, but rather than see Gonzalez as a poor performer, Gvozdyk performed very well, and he seems to be picking up speed in his punching power, which is great. In an earlier fight here, a year and a half ago, I sat very close ringside and watched him absolutely flatten Muhammadi. Now, the quality of opponent, you can, certainly argue that it wasn't a huge challenge, but, when you see a big guy drop another big guy at close range like that, there's a lot to be said. And of the 3 Ukrainians, the 3 dream teamers, as they call themselves, Gvozdyk is the one that's the most quiet personality, the most under the radar, and I think he's the one with the most surprises. So I'm going to keep my eye on him. But, they are training together in the same gym. They have a great work ethic. They kind of bolster and support each other. It's like telling somebody that you can stick to a workout plan better if you have a buddy. Well, those 3 guys are buddies in the gym together, and they pick up pointers and tricks from each other. They're each other's biggest fans. It's just all good all around for them.
Yeah, he got Joe Smith Jr. eliminated next for the WBC eliminator.
Yeah, which is very interesting, and somebody asked him, Gvozdyk, are you ready to, take on the big names of the division? Well, of course, one of the guys that gets dangled in front of him is his, colleague Sergey Kovalev, right? Now, there's no love lost between Ukrainians and Russians, ethnically. However, Gvozdyk and Kovalev, being both Southern California exiles, are friendly. But he said, hey, if I have to fight him, I will. So we'll see what happens. We're going to find out a little more how that all shakes out here in another 2 months.
Your thoughts, Gus?
Scorsese, if Vodsick gave you a gold-plated Rolls Royce for your birthday, would you still hit him with a sledgehammer?
I just really believe that Yunieski Gonzalez was a good reason of why he looked that way. Yunieski looked horrible. I know when the fighter's not there, and he's been out on his feet in 2 fights in a row that I've seen him in. He's been out on his feet, back out on his feet again, and all those things. And I just don't think that's good for a fighter. And finally, this time he just went out.
Yeah, but
Am I
I
there?
said what, he's
Oh,
got a
sorry.
tremendous right hand, one of the best I've seen. You know, his shoulders are like almost isometric in the way he transfers the weight through it. You know, he doesn't waste any time. Very efficient with his punches. He wants to get you out of there pretty much early. So yeah, I think he looks better than what Sergey Kovalev ever was. So yeah, Adonis better watch out, man. But Mike, I want to talk about the Usyk fight because I saw a horrible disconnect between Alexander and his corner. I saw an agitated, annoyed Usyk who clearly didn't listen to this idiot who was, you know, chaperoning his corner. Now the problem early on for Usyk, Mike, was that his jab was going over Hunter's right shoulder, and it kept going over it. Now we know Usyk is a lot bigger than pretty much all of the cruiserweights who he's fighting, and that seems to be a problem. And we saw a more flat-footed Usyk. You know, fortunately, I saw Usyk live both at London and I saw him at the World Series of Boxing, and I've never seen him box like this before. Now, I think where the fight changed was in the fourth round, and it's almost ironic because his corner was saying, "You need to go back to the jab and double and triple the jab," and that was totally wrong instructions because he kept missing the jab. So I think Usyk totally ignored, and correctly so, what his corner was saying. And he went and he started, you know, sitting down on his punches, especially to the body. And I think it was, you know, those uppercuts and those left hooks to the bodies that, you know, depleted the energy pretty much out of Hunter, who was, I think he was excellent for the first 3 or 4 rounds. It was him who was actually moving more laterally in and out with his unorthodox angles, you know, compared to more of a flat-footed Usyk that was, you know, befuddling him. So eventually, when Usyk started hitting the body and hitting him with some, you know, some velocity and some you know, some power that, you know, we were talking about, that he needs to, you know, try and sit down on his punches. I think that had a detrimental impact on slowing him down, and he kept working the body. And I think one of the rounds where he landed, you know, an unbelievable mean uppercut, where Hunter actually went back onto the ropes. You know, he was slipping the jab later on in the fight well. You know, good combination, you know, showing some great hand speed as well. And you got to give him credit, you know, he really did try, you know, for the knockout. You know, some of the, you know, the flurries he was putting in even on the later rounds. So, you know, tremendous athlete. If there's one quality that he has is his, you know, his athletic ability and his stamina. Because this guy can go 12, 15 rounds easy without even breathing heavily. So, so all in all, I think given the problems he was having with his corner and the fact that, you know, Papachenko didn't want to, you know, have 2 fights on one card, which is understandable. And in the advent of, you know, Mr. Bashir not being there and hence having this idiot Ross in his corner, I think it was you know, a good performance against a guy who is no slouch. You know, he gave Artur Beterbiev a hell of a fight in London 2012. There was only a count back that decided the bout. So, you know, he's a good opponent, Hunter. Very good chin. He needs a better corner himself. He needs to pace himself a little bit better over 12 rounds, and I think he's got a, you know, a very bright future as well.
My problem for Usyk, as they entertain what looks to be a future move to heavyweight, you mentioned Gus, his legs. I didn't like how flat-footed he was in this bout. I have no problem with Usyk. I don't think anybody at cruiserweight could beat him. That's just my opinion. But moving forward, should he decide to move up to heavyweight, my worry is if he was that flat-footed in the fight with Hunter, I wonder how flat-footed he could possibly be should he decide to make that jump, add muscle. Will that inhibit the movement, the legs that he has now at cruiserweight that we've seen in most of his fights? And you got to have some pop at heavyweight, particularly contemporary heavyweights where the guys are so big. I'm wondering, will Usyk have enough power to deal with these big guys at heavyweight? As far as Gvozdyk, he looked good. I still have some concerns about him should he face the elite at 75, be it Kovalev, be it Ward, be it Stevenson, be it the guy at 68, Baldo Jack, who's moving up to 75, because the jab is good, the right hand is good, but there are spots, even in the win over Gonzalez, in which, as he's punching, there are openings for him to be hit. And the guys I mentioned, most of them all have good pop. And we know that Ross has been hurt in the past. So when he fights the elite fighters at 75, I wonder how he will deal with the higher skill set, who will take advantage of his openings. And what happens when he really gets clocked on the chin? Your thoughts, Daniel?
I want to start with Usyk because I'm glad that Gus saw what I saw. I saw a complete abandonment of what made Usyk a really good fighter, particularly in the fight against Kawaki with Russ Abner. You could tell that Usyk pretty much was not paying attention to him, and you could tell he was not really giving any real instructions. Other than I popped the jab, there was a sequence in the point where you're just saying, you're supposed to beat him. He's not machine, you're machine. And I saw a lot of the fact that he was a little flat-footed. The jab was missing. He wasn't varying his punches the way he should. Now, I understand the plan. You're trying to make him into a brawler. But, I mean, that's not what made Usyk good. And we also have to take into account that Michael Hunter, for some reason, dehydrated even more.
Yeah, he came in at 198, but when he entered the ring, he weighed 197. Odd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that tells me pretty much like he is a natural light heavyweight. So either he can't really hydrate well, keep up those pounds, or he just thought if I could just get a little bit smaller, I'm going to be able to maneuver around Usyk, get some of his punches away, which he was able to do for a couple of rounds. But at the end of the day, Usyk was just a bigger man. I do think the fight should have been stopped at the 12th round because Hunter, for all intents and purposes, was out on his feet for a good minute. Then this plan to heavyweight, like you mentioned, Mike, like, do you honestly think, okay, this Usyk that we saw that didn't have none of the great footwork, none of the good setups that he had when he was with, do you expect that Usyk to do what he did against an Anthony Joshua?
The Usyk we saw against Joshua, the Usyk we saw against Hunter, he would get destroyed by Joshua.
Yeah,
destroyed.
Joshua, him, Wilder, because Wilder has power in his hand. Parker might be the most interesting fight because he's the most green out of the champions.
Well, Parker needs to get himself in shape, get himself back in shape.
Mm-hmm. There's that aspect. So, like I said, I wouldn't entertain a move. Hell, if I was his team, like I said, I know it's part of no way in hell it's happening, but if I was his team, I would call Mr. Bashir and beg him to come back. Because I understand the plan, making him into a brawler, but it doesn't look good for a guy who's made himself the best boxer in his division in Usyk. Yeah, you could probably beat Letabev, you could probably beat Gassiev, you could probably you'll beat Beatrice, you'll probably beat Bellew. But that's at the cruiserweights. You want to go up to heavyweight, where, like I said, there's people with powerful hands resting there. Now, well, let me get into the Gvozdyk situation. It was sad to see Yunieski Gonzalez just be reduced to just wailing by the third round, trying to throw wild punches to try to catch Gvozdyk. And luckily, the corner did actually do some work, even though it was like 5 seconds before the end of the round. They stopped the fight. they had to because the guy was just getting beat up. And to me, like in this whole card, like, okay, I know the main card is Lomachenko, but to me, the guy that's probably the most ready for an American audience, and then maybe just a consequence that he stays here, doesn't go back to the Ukraine like Usyk and Lomachenko do, is Gvozdyk. Because he's the only one that legitimately was able to try to do an interview and did it in English. So he's a bit more relatable in that sense. It's a very, really impressive victory from both. For both in the sense like you did what you're supposed to do, but there's, particularly with Usyk, there's a flaw in the game plan. And I don't think him staying with Russ Abner, who, by the way, is more known as being a cut man for Wilder than anything. And somebody pointed out he was the trainer for Adonis Stevenson at one point, and he was the trainer of David Lemieux at one point. They both left him.
Right.
And watching this fight, you could see why. So, like I said, if I'm Usyk Klimas, if I'm Eric Klimas, and we know the backstory of how the relationship with Mr. Bashir broke down, I would swallow my pride and ask Mr. Bashir to come back.
You was going to say something, Scorsese, quickly?
I was like, Gus said, somebody said, let's not point out at how Yunieski Gonzalez, how bad he was. I didn't agree with that. But let's point out how good Michael Hunter was. Michael Hunter, who can fight like that at cruiserweight? Nobody can force him to bang the boxer. Joseph Parker's maybe the only one, and Joseph Parker ain't gonna look as good as what Michael Hunter just did for those first 3-4 rounds. I don't think he can. I think Usyk can transfer back into what you saw versus Gvozdyk. Honestly, he'll have to fight that way at heavyweight. I don't want to see it, but okay, he's gonna have to do it. So it is what it is. Who can make him fight? Who can make him have to come get them? None of those guys. His feet gonna be better than I don't care if you pack on 15 pounds. His feet gonna be better than Deontay Wilder's, Joshua's, Parker's. Tyson Fury may be the only one, and God knows it. I don't know. Tyson Fury may try to offer him dope instead of fighting him. We don't know. So at cruiserweight, if you put who's Gassiev that just beat Lebedev, you put them in there together, he's gonna box circles around him. It's not gonna be a trainer thing. It's gonna be he knows the game plan. To me, if you guys think he didn't listen to the trainer, he still carried out the game plan. Bang the boxer. This guy came to boxing. He adjusted to it even without the corner. So big ups to him. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like if you don't got the foot speed to beat him, he gonna go right back to what he was.
Joshua, it may not look it, but if you really inspect him, he has pretty decent footwork.
Yeah, I've seen it in training. I agree there. I've seen him in training. Really get down with it.
He can cut off Usyk. Parker, like I said, he first of all, he needs to get in shape. And if he gets that jab established against Usyk, the fight is over.
Nah, he's getting slipped and he getting beat up.
Yeah, but Mike, you know, HBO have almost fucked this guy before he's even moved up to heavyweight. You know what? Within 30 seconds of the telecast, talking about Usyk too good for cruiserweight. Now he's moving up to heavyweight soon. You know why? You know, I mean, they're almost they just fucking it up before. You know, let him be what he wants to be. And I mean, for God's sake, the guy has not even had half a dozen fights.
Ideally, they should let him go the Holyfield route, clean out the division, then move up.
Yeah.
But what happens now? You know, I mean, people are saying, well, already people who understand the plan is to move him up to heavyweight. So from that marketing point of view, you're almost devaluing your product or an asset who you're going to invest in subsequent for the next 3 or 4 years. So if he's coming up with these performances where he's not stopping people are already, they've already been subliminally sort of infiltrated with their jargon that he's going to be moving up to heavyweight. And so therefore they're almost making the conclusion that, there's no way he's going to be able to, match with the bigger fighters at heavyweight because he's, not stopping cruiserweights, etc. So,
But the move up to heavyweight coming from Usyk himself. We sat there and had a conversation with him the week before the fight, with Klimas way on the other side of the room, with the translators not anywhere nearby, and Usyk's English, like many of the boxers who don't do their interviews in English, in casual conversations, they're fine. They're good. They're good enough. And he's the one that said, I want to clean out the division and then I want to move. I think that's a pretty straightforward, sensible, clear plan.
Exactly.
We don't know how long it's going to take him. Nobody should get ahead of themselves talking about him at heavyweight until he has the belts. He wants the belts.
Well, they ought to tell the folks at HBO quit being so hyperbolic and rushing him to heavyweight before he even cleans out the division.
Well, there's
Yeah,
a lot of things we should be telling the announcing team at HBO. I mean, get in line.
Well, Mike, I don't think it's HBO. I think it's K2. I think it's the owners, obviously the Klitschko brothers, acknowledging that even after the Joshua fight, Vladimir Klitschko is probably not going to last much longer. So they're looking at it as, okay, we have a promotion. We need a heavyweight. You're the biggest guy we got. We're going to turn you to a heavyweight.
No, Vladimir Klitschko actually said he wants Usyk to start the campaign at heavyweight from 2019. So no, he didn't say that. He actually wants him to stay at cruiserweight and unify the titles. I've heard the interview of that in Germany.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on. Doubleheader in Manchester. Flanagan was the main event, but I wanted to focus on the main undercard bout. Give Gus the opportunity to vent, to burn, to raise holy hell. And the reason I say that, Gus reached out to me on Skype earlier this week, a couple of days ago, and he's like, I just want to talk about one specific fight. Just give me the opportunity to talk about it. Liam Smith, Liam Williams, WBO junior middleweight bout. First of all, Smith came in overweight. That's one issue. Two, the bout was stopped via a cut on Williams. Replays obviously showed that the cut came by way of a headbutt. But when it came to the announcement of the verdict, they suggested that the cut came by way of a punch. My question to you is, Gus, I'm gonna give you and you alone the opportunity to talk about this bout. What is wrong with the British boxing board, the British boxing officials? Do they use replay? If not, why? Because all you have to do is just look at replay to see that cut on Williams, who, by the way, I had winning up to the point of the stoppage, that cut was caused not only by a headbutt, but in my attention, it seemed to be a bit of an intentional headbutt from Smith, who was fighting desperate at that point.
Oh, yeah, Mike, how long do I have? Because I can fucking rant for about 3 hours of this one. I tell you, all you guys, man, grab yourselves a drink, because, what did Samuel L. Jackson say in Pulp Fiction? I'm Super TNT. I'm the guns of the Navarone, because that's the way I'm feeling, man. I'll tell you, Mike, the boxing fraternity, especially in the UK, have been infiltrated, and to the point of almost being contaminated for too long by this wretched Smith family. Every aspect of them, not only from boxing, but power hungry, almost before the fight, Mike, the whole aspect has really annoyed me. Before the fight, Joe Gallagher was involved in several heated arguments and debates with Frank Warren. He was very unhappy about the fight. He was making the point that Liam Smith should only be fighting on pay-per-view. Can you fucking believe this guy? Extraordinary. So they didn't want the fight, but Frank Warren did want the fight, and certainly Liam Williams did want the fight. So Smith in the build-up was on a weekly basis just antagonizing him, you know, downplaying his ability, saying that, yeah, you know, he didn't want the fight. He felt that Liam Williams was not in the same class to even share the ring. Now you can ignore that to say, look, that is, you know, how a fighter will address another fighter in the build-up. You know, you're going to resort to psychological taunting, whatever else. You know, we've seen that for you know for hundreds of years. Now, coming into the fight, yeah, you know, Liam Williams was 1.5 pounds over the weight limit. Now, the fight was for the WBA interim championship, so under the WBO rules, he had 2 hours to try and lose the weight. Now, there was some confusion. Now, the Smith clan claimed that he was advised that he only had 1 hour to lose the weight. So after 40 minutes, he consumed the drink, only to be later advised that he actually had 2 hours. So therefore, he made no attempts. Now, I'm not sure about that because he was the previous WBO champion and he knew the rules, and you know there's still an investigation to try and find out who on earth. It was actually the British Boxing Border Control, their officials who advised him that he had an hour. So their clusterfuck just continues. But coming into the fight now, it was evident from very early on that Liam Williams was the far superior fighter, both from a technical standpoint, but his hand speed, his foot speed, his ring IQ, his defense, creativity, his punching power. He was the superior athlete. Liam Smith has just some of the poorest foot movement you can fathom. He makes a turtle look like it's supercharged. He'll plod forward 1 foot at a time. His objective is just to land, coming on the inside and land that left hook to the body. That's his only offensive arsenal. He has no ability at long distance. He has one of the poorest jabs I think I've ever seen in my entire life. There's no velocity behind it. There's no authoritative force behind it. He just wails out his hands, Mike. It reminds me of, R. Kelly when he sort of poured out his hand and he's saying like, "I believe I can fly." That's Liam Smith's jab for you. Williams, cut him very early in the, in the third round. He was landing that beautiful reverse 1-to-1 combination where he was firing, the overhand right, followed up by the left hook, and that what created the cut in the third round. He continued. He was fighting well even on the back foot when Liam was trying to negate the distance a little bit. He cut Liam Williams again. It was a smaller cut, which was on the eyebrow. I think it was almost to the bridge of the nose. So the cut was pretty substantial in terms of Liam Smith. I had Liam Williams winning every round, Mike. Initially when I watched the fight, I had it maybe a 7-2, but after watching the fight numerous times, I had it 9-0. But if we talk about the 9th round now, the incident at the end that Liam Williams was actually fighting well in the round. Now the Smiths claim that he was tiring from a very fast-paced early early half of the fight. But I think he was, sustaining his energy a little bit better. Now, Liam Smith was warned by Joe Gallagher, that he was behind. And I agree with you, Mike. I think it was a torpedo head, a deliberate, intentional headbutt that, that exacerbated, not even exacerbated, that led to, a deep vertical cut on his right eyelid. Now, there was a cut early on, which I think it occurred at the end of the 8th round. But this is where the confusion was. It was a different cut. That cut was caused by a punch. But the cut which occurred in the 9th round was by an intentional head. But when it occurred at the end of the round, Gary Lockett jumped in the ring and he began an intensive sort of argument with the referee. And he was saying, it was a headbutt, but there was no indication from Terry O'Connor that it was caused by the head. So, Gary Lockett is a former fighter and he's been a coach, for well over 10 years. I'm just shocked that all of a sudden, this guy turns into a compassionate coach. I can recall when he sent out Enzo Macronelli against Bramer. I don't know if you remember that fight, but he had a huge golf ball under his eye, but he kept sending him out. So all of a fucking sudden he becomes Mr. Compassionate. And why on earth does he make a ruling to pull out his fighter? He should. That is for the referee to decide. The referee would invite the doctor to inspect it, and we know with a cut on the eyelid, if it's a severe cut, then it will expose the eye. So it is dangerous for a fighter to continue, but allow at least allow the referee to make that decision. You got to send out your fighter. The referee will see from the bloods, and then hence he will call the doctor or the physician. They'll inspect it, and then they'll adjudicate that the fight can't continue. And if they decide that the fight is caused by a headbutt, which it clearly was, then the fight will go to the cards. But the surprising point was that Liam Williams was only 1 point up on all 3 judges, which is a fucking travesty. So that they were gonna screw him one way or the other. And I'm very disappointed, Mike, that that Gary Lockett and his camp didn't protest to the extent of which we know that Joe Gallagher would have done for his fighter. Now, I don't know if you remember, after the Jorge Linares and Anthony Crolla fight, Joe Gallagher was so pissed off that one of the judges had it a 9-3 that he remonstrated to Eddie Hearn, and they actually submitted the complaint to the governing body for that judge not to adjudicate on any future, matchroom cards. So, you'd expect, the Williams clan to do the same. But I was even shocked with Williams, how passive and how humble he was in the post-fight.
Yeah. I thought he would be more upset, but he was like, it's like, well, that's just the breaks. But no, it wasn't the breaks.
Nah, he should have. What he should have been saying, I schooled your punk ass. The amount of criticism they were, leveling to him. He should have said, absolutely it was a headbutt, and they should have been almost campaigning for a rematch. And for Gary Lockett he was almost conceding defeat as well, Mike. He was like, he was definitely tired. Why are you giving excuses to the other camp, And for, the Williams clan after Mike, for Paul Smith to be going on social media and saying, well, it's up to us, the Smith family to decide if and when a rematch happens, Oh man, I've just had it with these fucking Smith clan, Yeah, Mike, just unbelievably pissed off that a very talented, young fighter, has been, subjected to this, to this injustice, just has really, well, as you can gather from me ranting on for the last 10 minutes, has really, really pissed me off.
Certainly understandable. Certainly understandable. That William Smith bout again took place in Manchester. Same card as Daniel's favorite fighter, Terry Flanagan, and I'm going to go with him on this one. Go to him on this one. He fought Petr Petrov. Look, I thought Petrov would give Flanagan a tougher bout. Didn't turn out to be the case. Flanagan won and won, quite comfortably. 8-4 on my card. 8-4, 9-3. I can understand if someone even argue he won by 10-2 in rounds. My problem is, Daniel, I'll go to you to talk about this bout and what could be upcoming for Flanagan. He won, but the overall performance was still like, If once you could see early on that he was the superior fighter that night, I was expecting him to step it up from really mid rounds on, but he really didn't put on the style and the pressure until the very end. And my question is what we saw the last, say, 3 rounds of the bout, how come we didn't see that earlier? He had an opportunity to impress against a guy who there were some folks out there who thought that he could even beat him, but he won. But again, it was like,
Gus, hold my drink. Because I'll be blunt, Petr Petrov was flat out robbed. Because unfortunately, Flanagan has a decent base, but he didn't do nowhere near enough for me because Petr Petrov was cutting inside. He was hitting hard to the body. He found the gaps in Flanagan's defense where he could land more punches. And the times that Flanagan was able to counter, he was doing it too far in between. Very too far in between for me when it came to it. But you could tell that he could easily have won the fight just by doing the jab. Just by doing the jab enough where he could come up. But Flanagan didn't do that. Flanagan tried to just catch Petrov when he was lunging in, but he didn't notice that Petrov was landing hard to the body throughout the fight. And then there's the fact that apparently judges don't like to count body punches because let's just focus. I've seen UK home cooking before, but a 121-108 card is flat out ludicrous.
Yeah, that's a bit wide.
Yeah, that's a bit wide, particularly for a guy that, for all intents and purposes, lost. Because
I will say I thought Flanagan won. Like I said, 8-4, possibly 7-5, but that 120 and 108, yeah, that's too much.
That's like Malnaghi said, that's a card that was turned in already. Like at the beginning of the card. And this is the issue, the part that I have most when it comes to Terry Flanagan. Part of it is the matchmaking. That I understand it. A lot of it's not his fault. A lot of it is Frank Warren just not putting him in really good fights. But it also comes in a time where you have an opportunity. Obviously, this is the second major lightweight fight you had in Manchester in 2 weeks. You've just seen that crowd have watched Anthony Crawler get schooled by Jorge Linares. And you come out and you put that of performance. I'm not going to say it's as bad as Billy Ho when he robbed Akimov, but it's pretty close. Because Flanagan had the tools to really, really make it sound, and he didn't do it enough. To me, Petrov landed more. That's particularly to the body. He outdid the defense more of Flanagan, and he was able to get Flanagan to be more countering to him than Flanagan setting the tone himself. Now, as far as the future of Flanagan, that's where it gets screwy for him. Because he's the fallback plan for either Mikey Garcia or Jorge Linares should that fight not happen. That's true. And then, like I said, you're not going to see him with Robert Easter, obviously, for a little bit, because Robert Easter will give him a hell of a lot of problems. And then there's the fact that he has to do another defense against Felix Verdejo, who, despite the limitations that we've seen Verdejo go through, if you give me that Terry Flanagan that showed up in that fight, Verdejo will beat him. It was just, that card was pissed me off so much. Like, I know you left Gus for the Liam, so you got the fighting Liam fight. After today, I got to watch the fight, and I got pissed. I got so pissed. Like, the only thing that saving grace is Nicola Adams making her debut. But it was just a ludicrous scores, first of all. Like I said, 120, 108. That's just flat out ludicrous. And on top of that, there were actually talked to a lot of people in the UK. They pretty much said, yeah, Petrov won. Flanagan didn't win that fight. UK guys, when they're normally as nationalistic as they come when it comes to their athletes, not siding with Flanagan. And which was a surprise to me, but yeah, we saw it. We saw Petrov land the better punches, and ultimately, Flanagan, of the part when it comes to Flanagan, his position has not changed. And this was the stage to change it in, particularly in a fight where you had a U.S. audience via Twitter. Banner Promotions paid Twitter to stream this fight live. So you had eyes on an American audience. And this is what comes out of it? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, how unfortunate was that for what, from a production perspective, was a terrific experiment. Props to Banner Promotions for doing it. It made that fight accessible. You know, the streaming technology is the wave of the future for a lot of boxing. And it worked without a hitch. The production value was great. It was easy to access, no screwing around. Unfortunately, you know, the product was subpar. I was one of those observers that thought that was a razor close fight, either direction. Petrov looked great in a lot of those rounds. And the announcing crew that was being used for the Twitter feed did think it was extremely close. 120 to 108? What? What were you watching? Clearly, we were watching two different fights.
Indeed. Let's move on to talk about the news here. And I'll go right back to you, Gail. After much discussion, Andre Ward, Sergey Kovalev rematch is happening, signed and sealed, set for June 17th, going through the press circuit this week. Kovalev has been, I'll just be blunt about it, Kovalev's showing himself to be a bully, the way he's deciding to talk trash. But still, with all that being said, the rematch is happening. Your thoughts?
It needed to happen. I'm glad it's happening. It is going to be back in Las Vegas. However, it is going to be in a different venue, a smaller venue, a venue that will bring the fans much closer to the ring, which I think is a good thing. There's been discussion about who the officials should be. Main Events would like to have neutral, non-Nevada officials. We'll see. So far, it's been no dice. And they did the press circuit this week. The stops were in New York, in Oakland, and in Los Angeles. They concluded in LA yesterday. And up in front of the microphones, on the podium, the prescribed scripted portion of the event, everyone played fairly nice. Everyone kept their act together and their powder dry. But when the individual fighters and promoters and players all did their individual interviews, as if they thought nobody else was listening to what they said except for the interviewer in front of them, everybody decided to have at it. So that's how it's going to be. And shades being thrown from every possible direction. There's a lot of finger pointing going on and defensiveness. And I'm going to kick your ass. No, I'm going to kick his ass. That's fine. You know what? I'm good with that. These guys do not like each other. They don't particularly respect each other. The promoters don't much like each other either, which is often, not the case when the fighters don't like each other. Most of the promoters who decide to do business, at least have a decent amount of respect for each other. In this case, oh no, very little at all. They can hardly stand to be in the room. So we'll see what happens. This is going to be an interesting chapter. Kovalev has said some very interesting things looking back on his performance against Ward, and has said in more or less blunt language, surprisingly blunt language, that he didn't prepare properly. He ran out of gas. He knows now what he needs to do. He prepared for a guy he didn't seem to think showed up. Well, we'll see. That's a fairly strong declaration. For Andrzej's part, he thinks it's going to be, pretty much round 13 and on, same as before, and that Kovalev really can't adjust. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics going on with this. I hope the fans will pay attention, will watch, and see who prevails.
Legit beef indeed from both camps. I'll go to you, Scorsese, quickly. Gail mentioned that Kovalev felt he didn't prepare adequately for the first fight. Is there some concern on your behalf that the announcement of this bout has happened so close to the fight? Usually such a mega, and I mentioned this on another channel that I was on while I was off last week. Fights of this magnitude usually are announced 4-5 months in advance for the press circuit. And let's just face it, to give fighters adequate time to get down in weight. We know Kovalev, A, doesn't have the easiest time making 175, and B, has a tendency to put on some pounds in between fights. So the question to you is, quickly, Scorsese, any concern on your part that this bout was basically announced right around 2 months prior to the fight?
I remember Kovalev maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the fight. I want to say about 3 weeks before the fight, posted a picture saying he was back in training, basically fat camp. So not in that sense, but in the sense that when I looked at him at these presses, this dude looks big in the neck, the face, the chest. He looks different, man. It's like, okay, you're doing a fat camp basically, and you're still out of shape. He should have had adequate time. Maybe not. But if he thinks he can say these, I didn't prepare well, that's why this. No, bro. Look, this is your second chance. Nobody's gonna listen after 2 losses. Better go in there and get it right this time, because like I said, nobody's listening after 2 losses.
Well, now let's be clear. He said he didn't prepare properly in that he claims he way overtrained.
And he still think he won.
He does.
Right?
Well, a lot of people do think he won.
Yeah, no, I remember the quote.
But he said he overtrained.
Yeah, I remember the quote.
Burned himself out.
He said he need only an hour at night and only some road work now, but he said I overtrained, and then he says like I could kick his ass even when I do drink, because that's basically the guy that he thought showed up in war, the guy that he said I thought I was fighting somebody better, so I went harder, and it turns out I didn't even need all that, and I still feel I won. Look, all of those, I think I won, I'm gonna do this different. I'm giving you, he's basically telling on his psychological self right now. To me, he's telling on himself. He's constantly saying what I did do, but you know, I won. I messed up in training, but I won. Blah blah blah, but I won. Like, no, you know, all of these were problems and issues, and you know you're going in there with a good fighter. Nobody's listening to that after a second law. I'm not listening to it now, but nobody at this point. I don't know. Kovalev's been having his way with people. He ducks purse bids and people give him a pass. He says things, people give him the pass. They may give him a second chance. I'm not listening no more though.
Well, I do think he's very clear, and I firmly believe his camp is very clear that if they're going back to Las Vegas and they're going to draw from the same pool of judges, that he's got to knock Ward out or stop him to win.
More excuse,
and
more
he
excuses.
should.
You on
And he should.
He's on American. This is more excuse than me. You fighting on American. You're signed to an American network. You were signed before Andre Ward was. You were getting the promotion while Andre Ward was out. You have an American promoter. You live in the U.S. You have an American trainer. You have some crazy American fans that give you a pass on a lot of things. And you're afraid of American judges now. No, you just had a close fight on your hand, and you need to quit making excuses, or you're gonna be Kovalev with 2 losses. And
But it's exactly that public perception that means if he was to win a close decision, there'd be griping in the other direction, just like there was griping in the first direction after the Ward decision. So if he wants to make an exclamation point on it, you know, he needs to go for the gusto, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like that attitude.
Wait a minute, guys. I see Bo has joined us from Truth and Facts and Box. I want to get him into the discussion. We're talking Ward Kovalev rematch is signed set for June 17th. Your thoughts?
I'm glad the fight happened. I'm definitely glad the fight happened. It was a fight that needed to happen. It was a close fight. You got some people that feel like Andre Ward won. You got some people that feel like Kovalev won. That's what happens when you get a close fight. It wasn't a robbery. So I'm glad it happens. But I mean, listen, there's always going to be animosity when you think you won a fight and you didn't win the fight. There's always going to be one camp who will say, hey, if we would have won, then the other camp probably would act like sour grapes and things like that. That's always going to happen. And that's part of the fight game. And there's nothing wrong with that. I agree with that. I like the back and forth at the press conference. You know, it makes for good fights. But at the end of the day, like Andre Ward said, okay, you know, you got to see me June 17th. And when you lose the second time, whether it's be you decision like last time, then, you know, that's it, is over with. And the thing that I have, the only thing I have a problem with is I just don't like the fact that, you know, whatever happens, people always want to blame and jump on the fighter for what judges see and what judges have done. It is not Andre Ward's fault that the judges thought he won that fight. It's not Kovalev's fault that the judges didn't vote for him. But at the same time, I mean, in a certain way, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not one that cares for like much excuses after the fight is done. I don't care who it is. Like Bernard Hopkins, when he got knocked out by Joe Smith, he tried saying he pushed him. No, he didn't push you, man. Come on, just accept your loss. Take it. Just say you lost and just take it. You know, and that's me. I mean, that's just me. I don't, you know, I don't get with them excuses. We supposed to be men. We supposed to be fighters. Then, hey, when you lose, you take your L and you just go. You train. You come back better. You come back harder, and you know you go on from there. But I do want to say this: if he's coming in that fight thinking he has to go for the gusto and knock him out, understand something. That means he's also leaving himself open to be countered, and he could try to go for the gusto and tire himself out again in this fight. You know, in the 4th or 5th round, because I think he said somebody he was tired in the 5th round or something like that. So he could be going for the gusto and tire himself out around the 4th or 5th round. So, but I mean, like I said, at the end, it's intriguing. Ward seems to be determined. Kovalev seems to be determined. So June 17th, we're gonna see what happened, and it makes like all that back and forth, like even listening to Scorsese and Gale, all that back and forth that's been going on between fans and people. That's what's gonna make this fight good and intriguing, and hopefully, it elevates both these guys. They bring their A game, and it does good. But at the end of the day, I do want to say one thing: we're getting an Andre Ward How ironic, though, we're getting an Andre Ward Canelo 2 fight, and we still yet to get a verbal agreement between Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin.
Daniel and Gus, your thoughts on this quickly.
The buildup is going to be easier to the fight because, well, the first fight, it was just two guys that, okay, we're going to fight each other pound for pound. This one, there's genuine animosity. Kovalev really, really does not like Andre Ward. So it's an easy way to build up now. This is also the promotion now is going to be led by Rock Nation, not Main Events. So this is where Rock Nation has to step up and prove that they are actually learning and having a good promotion. Because otherwise, it keeps looking like boxing is just a little hobby for them, while everything else that they do, including their sports agency front, does really, really well. Now, like I said, I'm one of the people that thought Andre Ward won the fight. It was a very close fight. And to me, Kovalev just has if he feels that the judges are the only thing that is messing with him, yeah, then yeah, you have to go for the gusto. And it's true. It opens up yourself for Andre Ward, but Kovalev's of the mindset that Ward's not strong enough to beat him. So he's already going to have that going into it. And on top of that, he's going to have a pretty large contingent in Vegas who believe that he won. So it's going to be an interesting fight. There's actually genuine animosity between both guys. And I'm mainly wondering if HBO is going to try to do a 24/7 in the face-off for this, because it's going to get very, very intense.
Quickly, your thoughts, Gus?
Yeah, Mike, I think you made a brilliant perception early on when you talked about the fight being announced within 2 months of the fight. Yeah, I think certainly Rock Nation are trying to bank on Kovalev's ballooning up in weight, and the fact that he doesn't keep himself in shape in between fights, to try and seize that advantage. But yeah, I've just had enough with my threshold has been exceeded with his excuses, just and the blowback from the fight. Now he talks about robbery this, robbery that. What about the fact that he's got a draw on his record, and he's fortunate enough to have a draw against Darnell Boone, who knocked him down on the canvas twice and should have won the fight easily. So, what goes around comes around. But he should be focusing on his deficiencies and the fact that he's a horribly one-dimensional fighter who has a problem with his gas tank, and once that depletes, so does his punch power and his accuracy and his volume. But there isn't sufficient time for him to address that. But one way or the other, Mike, I just pray for a clear and decisive victor. And I don't give a rat's ass who it is, because I'm just pissed off with the blowback still. People have been, coming to me, writing to me, phoning me and telling me that, the predicament and the so-called injustice against these Eastern European fighters is almost comparable to the racial discrimination suffered by Black American fighters back in the early 1900s, Mike. Can you believe that, man? Can you believe some of the shit that people have been coming up with? So, man, I just hope somebody knocks somebody out. End the story.
I can't. Let's move on, because no, I'm not going to get. No, I'm not. If I respond to that, I'm going to say something really. No.
Yeah. I've been like that, Mike.
We'll keep you under control, Michael. Let's move along.
Yep.
Okay.
What I was saying, man.
Adonis Stevenson has been a lightning rod here on the show. I'm going to set some ground rules here.
Michael, I didn't know I'm going to have to go back to the kitchen for more popcorn. You should have warned me.
We're not going to have this elongated, ultra back and forth trash talk. regarding Adonis Stevenson because the feelings about him have been made well known in the past. So with that being said, let's talk about Stevenson Fonfara fighting a rematch. I can't remember the exact date, but they're doing it again. Anybody who wants to chime in, let's go.
June 3rd, as always, in Canada. And this is a better fight than what was proposed in Shawnee Monahan. Because there was questions about how Shawnee Monahan got into the top 10 of the WBC rankings. But it's a decent fight. Fonfara has been up and down, but he's coming off a victory with Chad Dawson. And he does have that experience of that first fight with Stevenson where he knows if he does a little bit more and if Stevenson can tire himself out more like he did in the first fight, he could catch him. Now, is it going to be almost any different? No, Adonis Stevenson does have one of the best sleepers in the game in that left hand. But he also knows the experience that, yeah, Fonfara has the pop that can knock me down. And ultimately, remember, this Adonis Stevenson said he wanted to fight 3 times a year. This is going to be on June 3rd. And depending on how his thing goes, it's going to be almost wind up being once again a 1-year fight. While Alvarez just sits on the sideline waiting for his mandatory shot.
Scorsese, we had a bit of a discussion about this over Twitter, and I think you give Fonfara a pretty decent shot, given what Daniel ended off by talking about the layoff, especially the layoff at age 39, I believe. Your thoughts?
First of all, Jacob ain't here, but Jacob asks, nope. Fonfara is no longer cursed. He took the fight like a man and is mano a mano. Now, to the matchmaking of this. First of all, let me speak on Alvarez. If you're a WBC mandatory and you take step aside money, you don't want to be a champion. Said it about Triple G. I said it about anybody. If you're in line, you take the shot. The man said in November that his team told him not to fight Adonis. That's all I know. So I don't see much changing in 3 months if you're taking step aside money. But this fight, I like it. I'm gonna be honest. I like it better than the Joe Smith fight. I don't think Joe Smith beats Fonfara again in the rematch. I really don't. The Chad Dawson that Fonfara just beat, I don't know who watched the fight, but he turned back the clock for about 7 to 8 rounds. And he looked like some of these top 10 light heavyweights would be in trouble. They just period. He looked like I'm gonna take it there. The dude was in there looking like Guillermo Rigondeaux. I'm taking it there. And Fonfara stayed the course and he took hard shots, said, nope, chin ain't breaking, bruh. I got knocked out, chin ain't breaking. And he knocked his man out. Now with Adonis, you about 5 inches taller. You got about the same reach. You are 10 years younger. You just like Ward Kovalev, round 13. You been active. This man been on the shelf, been overtraining because he thought he was fighting in end of this month. He thought he was fighting the end of April. Got 2 more months, just about a little bit of a month and a little bit more to go into his fight. So you talking about an overtrained opponent, smaller opponent, older opponent, opponent you knocked down before, opponent that you stopped his knockout streak from back to like 2006. Oh shit. Matchmaking, I look at my promoter and say, what the hell are you putting me in there with? What you doing? I've been on the shelf, but he is Superman. But to to Fonfara, he's gonna have to prove he's Superman. To Virgil Hunter, he's gonna have to prove he's Superman. These people see a 40-year-old fighter when they finally step up and they take the fight. Some of them I think are punks, but some of them I look and I say, yo, he's gonna get in that ring. He's gonna find out if I take this left hand Adonis, what is he gonna do? If I can take it, is he gonna be there for 8, 9 rounds still hitting me with it at 40? They're gonna be doing VITA testing, WBC title on the line. This the truth serum. This the truth serum right here. Like Daniel said, it's not Fonfara's pop. It's gonna be Fonfara's toughness because he's not gonna be able to beat Stevenson in the first 4 or 5 rounds. Ain't gonna happen. He's gonna eat left hand, body, head, around the guard. He's gonna eat him. Now, is Stevenson gonna start round 13? He's gonna get close to Fonfara when he gets tired, or is he gonna start it early? this is gonna be a fun fight for me. I think it's better than Joshua Klitschko. I think it's better than Thurman Garcia. That's just my opinion. I think it's a hell of a fight, and it's not better than Kovalev Ward, but I think it's bomb. You didn't get a good fight for nothing. One of the top 3 light heavyweight fights I've seen in the last 5 years. That's just how I feel about it. But you got Pascal Gonzalez, then you got Barrera versus Shabransky, and maybe even Gonzalez versus Shabransky too. After that, hey, that's right in there. Top 5 light heavyweight fights, and I'm glad they're doing it again. Too bad Fonfara had to get knocked out to come to the table and accept what he is, the challenger, instead of beating these guys and getting the big head. But hey, it's happening again. Got a knockout win coming out for it. Got one guy coming out for 11-month layoff. So I'm tuned in.
I'm gonna kind of split this up a bit because we're a little bit pressed for time. I'm gonna give Bo the final word to talk about Stevenson Fonfara rematch before we move on.
Don't like the fact that he was offered step aside money, but then again, don't like the fact he took it. He didn't have to take it. You don't have to take step aside money. If you want to fight, fight. So, but I like Fonfara better than I like Sean Monahan. I think that's a better choice. So we'll see what happens. Fonfara got Virgil Hunter. He thinks Virgil Hunter helped him. He made the change. He thinks Virgil Hunter helped him. So we'll see just how much that helped him, and go on from there.
I'll go to you, Gus. It looks like Pacquiao and Jeff Horn is indeed happening for this summer. Your thoughts?
Yeah, happy with that fight, Mike. You know, Jeff Horn, I think only probably Scorsese and myself are probably the only 2 opponents of Jeff Horn, but it's not from, you know, some sort of casual fanboy standpoint. It's from his, you know, his technical qualities. You know, I've seen him fight in London. I know what he brings to the table. Just because he's from a jurisdiction that is not synonymous with boxing doesn't mean that he's, you know, that he's any less of a credible opponent. You know, if Errol Spence has got his chance, you know, why should Jeff Horn be denied his chance? You know, both of them made the last 8 in London. I think Jeff Horn actually looked better than Errol Spence in London. All right, Errol's had some, you know, better wins, but it's easier to get opponents in the States than it is, you know, bringing them over to Australia when you're under a, you know, a promotional company that, you know, doesn't have any, you know, significant leverage globally. So, so yeah, I'm happy with the fight. I think Jeff Horn poses some real problems to Pacquiao, both on the inside. I think he's a very physically strong fighter as well. I think he has the ability, you know, to slip punches. So, you know, I'm certainly, you know, looking at all of the markets. I'm actually trying to make some markets with some companies to get some of the best odds. I think Jeff Horn has a chance of, you know, upsetting and beating Manny Pacquiao. You know, it's going to make significant numbers over there. They're talking about a lot of, you know, public and sort of private investment that's going to be funding, you know, the money. You know, that they can have the fight over at MCG, you know, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, which for cricket games, you know, it has over 100,000. Certainly when England in the Ashes, you know, tour over there playing Australia. So, you know, there are opportunities, you know, for both guys to, you know, to make a serious amount of money. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
I'll go to you on this story, Gail. While I was off, there was word spread, and I checked my Asian boxing sources. It looks like, and shout out to Now to TV. He did a video posting of this. I wrote a blog for this for Pound Boxing, for my blog as well as for Ring News 24. Japanese sensation Naoya Inoue, junior bantamweight champion, WBO organization. The word is he is set to make his United States debut later on this year. Looks to be September. Your thoughts, Gail?
Excellent move. Inoue has been talked about, especially the HBO folks who are looking for that next generation of boxing stars, because they're guys, for most part, they're starting to look at them aging out. Past Terrence Crawford, they got to generate the next crop of guys. And Inoue is somebody that could build a nice following. They could build him in the same way they've built Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. And in the same division, they've certainly had some success with the lower weight classes, which is great for all of us. No reason he cannot be a star. No reason he can't develop the same kind of big following on the West Coast that Roman did in the Southern California area. And I'll tell you, I'd love to see Inoue on a card in September at the Forum. We can imagine all sorts of possibilities for the main event. Make it a mini tournament of the lower weight classes, the very lowest few weight classes, and have a big darn festival of it. Let's have at it. I like it a lot. And opponent to be determined. And there are a lot of good choices. So it's all good. I really think they cannot go wrong, because once people see him in action, they're going to gravitate to him.
And while the option of a possible fight with Roman Gonzalez remains, should Roman beat SSR in a rematch, it looks like the plan is for Inoue to fight in September, either a non-title bout or a final defense of his junior bantamweight bout. What the overall goal is to, if the Roman Gonzalez bout doesn't happen, it looks like they're going another direction. Looks for Inoue to move up to 118 and invite ZZ.
Hey.
The guy who beat Rashid Warren either late in 2018 or late in 2017, early 2018. And I'll go to you right quick on this one, Gus. Possible setting up long term for a bout with Yamanaka, especially should Yamanaka beat Luis Neri. What a super fight that would be in Japan.
Wow. They've been talking actually about that fight when he was still campaigning at 112, because I knew at that point was talking about moving up, had a similar sort of trajectory like Lomachenko, like 4 weights within a certain number of fights. Clearly, yeah, he was a lot bigger at sort of a natural, 112. The way his frame is as well, he can certainly move up to, even 126, I think. But Yamanaka and him, yeah, it's a magnificent fight. Inoue, Mike, the thing is with him is he's pretty much taken over Kosto Aoka as the big money fighter over there in Japan now. And he can command sizable purses over there. So it's not like he needs to come and fight in the US. And there is that question whether they're going to be receptive, to him. And we've seen that the US audiences can be quite sort of bloodthirsty, given the problems that some of these fighters like Usyk is getting with his. But he has that, he has that style. He is a monster. He's one of those fighters who generally wants to take your head off, but he'll combine that with with incredible boxing ability, both on the front and back foot. Can change his game remarkably within the fight. You see it's starting off mid-range. He'll come inside when it's not working. He'll go back out, pot shot. So there's so many dimensions to his game. So you'd think that he's going to be a huge success. Yeah, if the only question is, are they going to be able to come up with, the purses to attract 2 big name fighters, simultaneously? Because he has been, his people have been making offers, but, not significant offers. And you can't expect some of these other champions, to be taking, a 30% split, especially when in a unification fight. And, Shinsuke does make very, very good money as well. But Luis Neri, you know how I feel about that one.
Yeah,
I just think it's right for Neri now. He looks to be a beast. So it's
when that fight is officially signed, that's going to be one of the better fights of the year, no doubt about it.
That's the number one fight I'm looking at, and then Estrada and Quadras, I think he's going to be that's number two for me. But if the fight happens, I welcome it. But I feel, Mike, he's going to.
You don't think he's going to? You don't think he's going to? You don't think Yamanaka is going to survive Neri? In other words,
I'm still thinking, but I just think, Neri is too young, too fresh, too aggressive. The time is right for him now.
Last story here in the news segment, and I'll go to you, Daniel, and then you, Bo, Gail, you can chime in on this too. We're going to talk Klitschko and Joshua and Klitschko. Not necessarily the fight itself, but behind the scenes dealings here. The fight is going to happen. 90,000+ fans in Wembley. Biggest fight, heavyweight fight in the UK ever. Maybe the biggest UK fight ever. But here's the deal. For us US fans, we still don't know what network that bout will air on. I'll go to you on this one, Daniel, because you've been keeping your eye on the story for a while now. HBO and Showtime going back and forth on the negotiation side in terms of who will air the bout. Will one network air it? Will both networks air it? How they're going to do that? Here's the thing. The fight is a little over 2 weeks away. Time's pressing on. Look, I'm a hardcore geek. I'm going Malcolm X. I'm going to see the fight by any means. I don't care, legal or illegal. But for the casual fans who are interested in this bout and do not know how to go the dark cable, I'll just say, route, the underground route to see the bout, regardless, particularly here in the United States, there has to be some concern here that as of right now, Thursday, April 13th, a little past 11 p.m., we don't know where this bout will be aired here in the U.S. First you, Daniel, and then Gail, Bo, Scorsese, and even Gus in the UK. If you want to comment on it, please do.
It's very concerning because particularly if you're Eddie Hearn, if you're trying to really to acclimate Anthony Joshua to an American audience, to say this is the next best, this is going to be the next great heavyweight. This is a bad move, letting Showtime and HBO essentially play chicken here, because the main reason we're playing chicken is because on the contracts for both Joshua and Klitschko, the networks have first and last matching rights. So every single time one network throws a figure, the other one's just up in the ante. Now, I can see why Hearn's trying to do it. It's more money for him. It's more money for Sky Sports. But you literally wasted 3 months. Oh no, we can pretty much say almost 4 months of valuable promotion time in the U.S. where you're trying to establish your guy on logistics, on contracts when it comes into it, because if it gets to a point where you find out on the last week that, Showtime's going to air it, HBO's going to get it, HBO's going to want to send their crew out there. And that's a lot of last-minute logistics that HBO has to deal with. Showtime doesn't. This could be the fight that Showtime wants to take their crew out to the U.S. And particularly, I'm pretty much sure they probably want to do it, especially with their guy, Mauro Ranallo, after what he's going through with his other employer. But from a business sense, it looks very, very bad if the whole point of the fight is to have Anthony Joshua's quote-unquote crowning as the next great heavyweight. Tyson Fury being an NFL linebacker, weight-wise notwithstanding.
Linebacker, defensive tackle.
Yeah, I was just going to say defensive end.
He could not. Yeah, he could be a defensive lineman at this point.
Oh hell, he
But,
weighs 350 pounds.
Him and Vince Wilfork are basically the same weight.
Yep.
Here's the deal, though. Let's think about this in the long term. What we've read, what I hear being discussed is that the basic terms were agreed to. That Showtime would air the fight live, which is in the afternoon in the United States, and then 4 to 5 hours later, HBO gets the replay. The sticking point, according to insiders, is what happens in those hours between the end of the fight live and the beginning of the fight replay on HBO. HBO doesn't want spoilers out there, right?
Dumb.
Which is
Excuse me for interrupting, Gail, but that's dumb.
It is. The genie is out of the bottle, right? There's no way they can stuff it down. As we were all saying, of course, now nobody on this panel would ever advocate anybody, stealing other people's intellectual property by, illegal streaming. But hello, everybody's going to know what happened. Some will want to see the replay. Some will not have been available in the afternoon because they're out doing things, and then they get the chance to see it again.
Here's the thing.
Part of the deal. Well, here are the requirements of the deal. Both networks must have their live teams ringside. They can't call it from the United States. So they've got to go over there. Considerable expense, right? And for HBO, it's a bit of a loss leader for them. Here's the deal, though, the way I'm looking at it. When we're talking about the heir apparent being Joshua, win or lose, he's the future of the division in most people's opinion. Why does HBO want to promote that? Why does HBO have any interest in promoting that? If Klitschko is truly, on his way out and this is his last blast, okay, HBO certainly would want to take advantage of that. But on the other hand, how much are they hurting themselves versus the benefit of showing Klitschko on his way out? Should he win? Fine. Klitschko, should he lose? They give a showcase to the guy that's taken over. I think they're in a really tough spot with this. They want to make good for Klitschko. He's been very good to them. K2 has been very good to HBO. They have a good relationship, but it's just one hot mess. And the truth is, you're right, Daniel, they've completely screwed themselves, no matter what, by the fact that it's now, 15 days out. 15 days out from the fight, and we still don't know exactly where we're going to see it.
So this is dumb. This is why HBO stays failing. They basically said they don't want spoilers, right? How in blue hell are they going to stop ESPN from reporting what happened?
Well, it's a little bit more than that, though. How are you going to stop social media?
Well, right.
Let me finish. They couldn't get folks to stop watching Mayweather Pacquiao via stream, which was the biggest money grossing bout ever. What makes you think they're going to get folks on social media from streaming Klitschko, Joshua and Klitschko? Given the many ways that bout can be streamed, legal and illegal.
It's not even the streaming. You can't stop social media. It doesn't matter if Showtime airs this live. They can't stop that. You can't stop a live broadcast unless
it's not like they're going to be able to stop folks on Twitter and Facebook from talking about it. That's dumb.
The only thing they can stop is any major network showing highlights. That's it. That's the only thing they can sit on. And at that point, what's the point? Who cares?
But even they may be able to stop it from doing highlights, but they can't stop it from showing still photos.
Gail,
right.
But Gail,
that's not going to satisfy the main. That's not going to satisfy the.
But Gail, can I ask you a question though? Who actually watches anything on the news for highlights?
Well, exactly. Well, the truth. Well, let's put it this way. In my opinion, if I'm talking to them, I'm going to say, listen. Let's say this turns out to be an interesting, exciting fight. However it goes, wouldn't the fact that you're getting 30 seconds worth of what could be an exciting 6 or 12 round fight make you want to watch if you missed it? To me, that's the best ad in the world. is, hey, this fight happened earlier in the evening, and oh, by the way, in the United States, HBO is going to replay it tonight at 7 p.m. Hello? What's that going to hurt? And what else have they got going anyway? Why this big game of chicken is being played is beyond me. I really can't figure it out.
I think part of it is also pretty much is a narrative, because one of the things that HBO does pretty decently when it comes to boxing is they makes nice little preview packages of fights. And to them, most likely the case is, okay, we don't want anything airing in the meantime because we want to make our package now that we know the fight. And if Klitschko wins, we're going to make our great HBO package that Vladimir's still the king. And if Joshua wins, they're going to do it half-assed because they know they're not going to get Joshua. It's dumb and redundant, first of all, in the fact that, A, like I said, you wasted 3 months of possible promotion. And B, you're supposed to be crying poor right now. You're supposed to be the network saying, oh, our budget is pretty cut. HBO, they're spending their money on Game of Thrones, on new shows. Well, they're not having money for boxing. Yet you're playing the game of chicken with Showtime for a fight that could very well be you're just featuring the guy that's going to be on Showtime. It makes no real business sense from HBO other than being a gambler and saying, okay, I think Klitschko can win this. And if he wins it, okay, he has two of his belts back. That's all you gain. Because otherwise, if you look at the odds and you look at people's perception, people think that Joshua might run over Klitschko. You're not gaining anything from this game of chicken that you're playing business-wise. And guess what? Bob Aaron's going to look into that and say, oh, why couldn't you're whining about pay-per-views. You could have paid this, done this for a while, and you could have aired my card that had Zerto, Oscar Valdez, Magdaleno. You could have aired that instead of having me do pay-per-view again.
Sitting outside the U.S., Gus, your thoughts on these shenanigans, the only way I can put it, between the networks regarding this fight?
You know, Mike, I actually agree a lot with pretty much the consolidated sort of opinion from yourselves, especially when a blueprint has already been formulated for a fight to be shown simultaneously on both networks. You think they can quite clearly resurrect that deal, but when you're talking about fights that will generate revenues to extreme measures, it doesn't surprise me that the two central parties are not unable to sort of negotiate a deal. But there is further sort of complications involved, because Klitschko has had a sort of a long-term deal with RTL in Germany, and from my understanding, they still have a vested interest in deciding if third-party television rights are decided. So I feel they're a sort of an unknown cog that may be hindering some of the negotiations between HBO and Showtime. So, but it's almost ironic, Mike, because I'm able to see the fight in the UK, but I'll be gladly contravening every copyright control and streaming the fight, because such is my disgust, for Sky Broadcasting Corporation and sort of Matchroom Sports, because monetarily they've been raping the United Kingdom public for so long.
It's a strong word, Gus. It's a strong word.
Yeah, but they have, Mike, with absolute subsistent cards, and so the bulk of my anger is more based on on the fights and the undercards itself, and such is the gullibility and stupidity of the casual public that they're able to pay exorbitant sums of money, to try and grasp tickets. you know, at least Frank Warren doesn't put his tickets out on StubHub. You know, there is some sort of regulation on the prices of their tickets, and he doesn't allow third-party touts to be putting, you know, to be buying the tickets by illegal derivative bot methods and then reselling the tickets for up to, you know, 60, 70 times the face value. So, but Eddie Hearn has no issues with that. Even when I actually sent him a letter, you know, asking him to actually review that situation. So, so I couldn't really give a fuck, Mike, about, you know, any of his cards. You know, I'd gladly stream it, and I'll proliferate it by sending out the links to millions of people.
Last word, Scorsese and Bo. Last word from you on this issue with HBO and Showtime and the United States of Joshua and Klitschko being aired in the United States. First Scorsese and then you, Bo. Are you there, fellas?
I'm here. You know what? It just goes back. Remember, I went on that very long soliloquy about HBO and how they like to double down on bullshit. That's really what it is. It's again like, how do you justify having this type of, just even saying something like that is like, how do you tell me you got a bunch of so-called intelligent people that know the sport, that supposedly is your think tank, saying something as asinine as that? We don't, you know, between the hours you show it and then we show it, we don't want there to be, you know, we don't want there to be nothing said about the fight. Okay, whatever. And I mean, Showtime should have just looked at them like, you know, gave them that look that you give your child when they say something stupid like, go to your room. and just and just be like, yeah, okay, sign the paper, thank you. But it is what it is. And to Gail's point, even if you do have people talking about, you know, the fight on one of the networks and channels, that's free marketing for anybody who hasn't watched it. They may be busy or at work in the afternoon or didn't get a chance to watch it on the dark net. Say, okay, well, let me set my DVR and you record HBO and watch when I get home. Or hey, let me go home and watch it. Because some people like to wait for the results of the fight, because if it's a boring fight, they're not going to record it. Or if the guy didn't win, didn't win, they won't record it. So I mean, like, it's just more indicative of what is going on at HBO. It's you know, that's, I mean, what more can you say? Go to your fucking room. That's it.
Let's move on and start previewing the fights. I was going to talk. Sullivan, Barrera, and Paul Parker. That's happening Saturday night in Knoxville, Connecticut on HBO Latino. But I'm gonna skip that, and I promise we're gonna recap it next week.
Thank you, and I will not attend.
I want to focus on Ricky Burns, Julius Indongo, unification bout at 140 WBA IBF belt.
Mike,
go ahead.
Real quick, since that was 175, and I missed one point about the 175-pound lineal title fight coming up. Fonfara wins the belt. Virgin Hunter has every fighter under his stable has every title in the light heavyweight division. That's one thing. And the second thing I missed was, is Andre Ward gonna travel to Canada to watch his stablemate, who supposedly they become pretty good friends, fight for the lineal title? And if it doesn't happen, is he going to get called out to his face? I was going to say that in this 175-pound fight we was going to cover, but since we not understand why we're not. This dude's fighting Joseph Parker's auntie or something. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, indeed. Indongo, Ricky Burns. I'll go to you on this one, Gus. Since this is in your part of the world, level of excitement. Are you looking forward to it? We know a lot about Burns. We don't know much about Indongo except for the way he won the title in spectacular fashion. One of the knockouts of the year. A breakdown from you.
Yeah, Mike, I'm actually surprised by the lack of promotion regarding this fight, even on Sky Broadcasting Corporation itself. I mean, I've been perusing the Sky News, Sky Sports, but very, very little promotion, which is highly disappointing, especially for a fighter in Julius who doesn't have a profile, and and there is a distinct lack of footage of any of these fights anywhere. I think I may have seen one or two fights where somebody has actually got a mobile phone and they're recording one of his fights in South Africa. But it's a great opportunity for both fights to become unified, champions. With Julius, Mike, there's still too much of the unknown, and the part which I'm a little bit concerned about with him is the fact that he was unable to stop Kaiser Mabuzo, and the fact that Zab Judah and that Mujahideen transformer Khabib, both of them were able to knock him out, and Julius was not. So it begs the question whether the power, is it really there, or was that just a case of him landing a 1 in a million punch against a guy in Russia who was never really chin tested. So when he was tested for the first time, he wasn't unable to overcome. So, but from the little bits I've seen with Julius, Mike, is as a southpaw, as a taller fighter, but technically I still see him lifting his feet off the ground when he's trying to throw his overhand left. So technically there's still a lot of deficiencies I've seen there, but clearly we haven't got the footage, so it's hard to make a real critique about his pros and cons. Ricky Burns is better at keeping the fight from long distance. We know his jab is definitely his best punch. He has that nice sort of 1-2 which he likes to do, sort of moving on the fly. He can punch like that. This is a Ricky which has pretty much come to the end now, so he's looking for sort of big money fights. So it's still very much a 50-50, Mike. Personally, I'd like to see Julius unified. I got a lot of being in sort of Africa for sort of 6 years, so that'd be nice. The betting odds are strongly with Ricky Burns, so there's still a possibility for all of the degenerate gamblers out there to make a little bit of corn on Julius. Julius by knockout, you can get very, very good odds on that. So me, I'll have a little flutter on that, Mike.
I'll just open up for everybody else here on the panel. Thoughts on this bout? Thoughts on the Ricky Burns, Julius Indongo unification bout at 140?
If you're Burns and you watched video of that knockout, I don't care what you think of your skills. There's an intimidation factor. There's a scratchy thought in the back of your head factor that's going to affect you during the fight. How much, how little, who knows? For the fans, we've all got to be saying, wow, is there the possibility of us seeing something like that again? What kind of performance are we going to see? Was that an anomaly? Was that a one time only? Or if he can repeat anything even close to that, his reputation is going to be on fire. Once is an event, twice is a coincidence, but 3 times is a pattern. So let's see whether he gets to pattern territory. That's what everyone wants to know. It's an interesting little matchup on a weekend that's, fairly slow because it is the Easter Sunday weekend. So it's, that's a nice little Easter egg for the Easter Bunny leaving us.
Anyone else before we sign off?
This is the ultimate. This is like the ultimate rags to riches story for me for Indongo. If you watch Indongo fight, it seemed like he was fighting in a bingo hall. Now he's going to be on the big stage or a bigger stage with Ricky Burns, and he has an opportunity, if he beats Ricky Burns, become unified and go for Terrence Crawford or fight the winner of or fight the winner of the Rance Bartholomew fight. So he has an opportunity to make himself, who was essentially nobody ever heard of, into somebody that people could be talking about. So I mean, that's what we love boxing. it's a great rags to riches story, right? And that's what I like about it. And also to Gail's point, if you watch that knockout that he gave, you have to be concerned because the punch he got hit with, that's the punch that Ricky Burns, when he fights, he likes to back up with that head straight up, and that's the punch that can catch him going out.
He's such an unknown. Indongo's such an unknown in this aspect that it makes it tantalizing. But the cause for concern probably to me when it comes to this fight is the fact that it's in Scotland. And we know Ricky Burns is Scotland's version of Jesse Vargas in a way, where he's gotten a lot of favorable decisions.
I never in a million years would I have predicted the Ricky Burns Jesse Vargas comparison.
It's there. It's there.
I'm not disagreeing. I just caught me by surprise.
Yeah. And that's the whole worry. But we know so little about Indongo. Like, there's so little footage of him. It's the same thing. It's the same questions. Could this be just a one-off? Did he just catch Turanowski at the perfect angle at the perfect time? Or is this for real? And if this is for real, and Indongo winds up unifying the belt, then that's a prime opportunity for Terence Crawford to do what Andre Ward, Sergey Kovalev, and Gennady Golovkin have been so close to doing, but have not been able to, which is completely unify a division. Now, there's a situation. He may have to fulfill WBA obligations with Ronces Barthélemy. But I think the WBA will understand that if Indongo wins and he gets offered a fight for, and this is one thing Scorsese is a big proponent of, fight the lineal champion at 140 pounds, you have to take it.
I'm on the fence on that one. You know, I just kind of want to see that fight with Barthélemy and Crawford so bad that I'm just like, damn, but I agree. If you had get that shot, you do gotta take it. But damn it, I don't even think Barthélemy and Relic gonna get, like, Barthélemy been out a year again. Al Heyman fighters just homeless at this point. Where's that purse bid haven't took place? Nothing's going on. The fight was supposed to be scheduled for Porter versus Berto date. Move back. I just seen where the 135-pound Robert Easter and Shafikov, they fighting in Ohio off a purse bid. No TV data or network.
No,
Like, so
it's
I'm
a bounce.
really
It's a
curious.
bounce.
Okay, maybe so, but that didn't say it in the press thing. It didn't say, and that's too good of a fight for Bounce TV. That they don't even stream the fight. Hardly people hardly have it. And
Yeah.
and then you got like I said, they don't have a date for not Comey, but Barthélemy versus Kirill Relic, who's the real WBA champion. So it's just like, man, that fight, it's probably not gonna even happen to the point where they're gonna be the mandatory yet. And it's just boxing in a bad place to me right now.
No, Scorsese, that fight's happening. I can give it to you on good authority. That fight with Rance and what you call is happening.
Yeah, I've heard it too. I've heard that too. I thought it was good authority when they said April the 29th, I believe it was, or 23rd. I'm like, there we go, we got it.
No, it's happening in May.
Yeah, it's in May. It's in May. And well, if we're on the subject on it, like, remember, there's even less networks now because Spike TV decided to end their deal with the PBC. And for people that understood, like, they're television insiders, that may open the floodgates for a lot of networks to start ending their agreements with the PBC too.
Yeah. Any more word on the Burns Indongo bout, or y'all want to end it on that note?
Yeah, I hope Indongo knocks his ass out. That's what I hope. There we go. Forget the breakdown, all the wishy-washy. Let's go, Indongo. Do it again, so you can stake claim that I did what Crawford didn't do, and I did this twice to champions. You know, so I want to see that. Dongo.
And I think we're going to shut the show down on that note. Going to go around here, give folks the opportunity to basically prop up, to give props and shout out their own thing. Ladies first, Gail from Communities Digital News, for folks who want to talk boxing, want to talk Dancing with the Stars or anything else, or the environmental issues, because I know you're heavy into that. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Well, first of all, we are very sad that Mr. T is no longer on Dancing with the Stars. So, but he gave it a good damn run. We're very proud of him. You can find me for all things boxing in my column Ringside Seat at Communities Digital News, which is COM, C-O-M-M, Digi, D-I-G-I News, comdiginews.com. That's a place.
Go overseas, crossing the pond. Gus from Corruption and Boxing, for folks who want to talk the sweet science or talk music, especially New Kendrick. It dropped while we were recording the show. Your dude, happened to get a copy of it early. I'm going to listen to it more after the show. But yeah, for folks who want to talk the sweet science or talk music, Gus, let the folks know where it can hit you up.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Always a pleasure to be on this show. Talking boxing, I'm on Corruption in Boxing, sort of all platforms. Some articles I've actually tried to send to the Ring. Hopefully they'll try and publish them. Some in-depth analysis I've done on drug testing, VADA in particular, sanctioning bodies, rules. So I'm hoping to get some sort of airtime for those articles. Music wise, I'm doing a number of projects at the moment, major reviews across the board. Stuff's being published on Juno and Juno Records as well now. So yeah, things are going well. Thanks.
Indeed. Scorsese, The Lion's Den. For folks who want to talk the sweet science or anything else, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on the YTBC getting called a Stevenson fanboy, a Loma hater, a bit of everything. I think I'm very fair in everything. I want to put the same projections on everybody. I just want to see these fighters reach their greatness if they capable of it and do it all in the right way. So, it is what it is. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. But my channel is low place hashtag MLPF in the YouTube, on YouTube. And my Twitter is at my low place, I believe. That's it. And you can follow me there and talk boxing with anybody who want to talk boxing.
Daniel the Inscriber, for folks who want to talk boxing or the NBA, specifically the Miami Heat. Condolences to them. They did make the playoffs, but anyway, let the folks know where they can find you.
They did make history, though. The first team to go from 19 games under 500 to 500. Yeah, that's, and they only lost via tiebreaker. Unfortunately. But definitely you can find me on Twitter, Raucous99. And me on Sundays. You can catch me also with Joe and Francis for Boxing News. Well, like I said, we're going to definitely review this fight coming up. And for hopefully by then we'll actually have confirmation of what Gail said regarding the HBO and Showdown, because if not, I'm going to get ready to rake them in the coals. Because this is bullshit.
Oh, yeah, boxing social media needs to unite. I don't care if you got past beat, get over them. If
why does everybody want to see this old man get killed so bad?
Look, man, a fight of this magnitude needs to be given full attention. And
of what magnitude? Magnitude, the old man is about to die. Just like, come on, this is cruel and unjust. Savagery.
So, wait, did you feel the same way when you were probably watching Zaragoza Morales?
Look, this is Klitschko. Look, Klitschko showed you what he was 2 fights in a row. He's just eyes in the ring now. That's it. He's just eyes, just waiting and watching.
Still a significant bout. Major bout. And HBO, Showtime, they need to get their act right. Bottom line, they better stop fucking around here. both from Truth and Facts in Boxing for folks who want to talk the sweet science or watch the adventures of you and your daughter on Twitter and on Instagram. Let the folks know where they can find you.
You know, I'm glad you said that because I didn't get a chance to chime in at work, working another one of them long shifts. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I just want to say to Broner and Tank and all of them dudes that just are more entertainers than fighters. I don't need you to fucking entertain me. I can go upstairs and get my daughter and do a video for entertainment. I need you motherfuckers fighting. I don't need your entertainment. I need you training like Earl Spence and fighting. That's what I need you guys doing. But you can find me on Truth and Facts About Boxing on YouTube. You can follow me on me and my man Bernard on Twitter at truth_factbox1. That's capital T for truth_ capital F for factbox1. The same thing with Instagram, all lowercase truth_factbox1. And you can find us on the Movement Podcast with my man's 2K to God from the Gods of Boxing Talk, Twan from Hoop Jab, and Big Cool from Colossal Boxing, and right here on Pound for Pound. And also, you can also catch me reposting and sharing tweets from my man Daniel. You can also post me arguing with Scorsese, and you can also catch me reposting anything from Michael and Gail on their articles.
Indeed. Excellent shows, by the way, you do on the weekend. For those who don't know, Bo, usually on either Saturdays or Sundays, takes time to interview up and coming boxers, men and women. So you need to check his channel out, no doubt about that. For folks who want to talk boxing or music or anything else with me, you know what it is. Brother JR on Twitter at BrotherJR76. As I said earlier in the show, if you want to check out all things regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, please go to the blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. Check the right of the page. Links to our pages on Facebook, G+, Tumblr, as well as Twitter. Also links to where to listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Player FM. On the next episode, we will do a recap of, we will talk Sullivan, Barrera. We will do a recap of Ricky Burns, Julius, and Indongo. And we will do a preview of all the boxing happening on the 22nd. Really stocked and loaded, a lot of boxing happening on the 22nd. Give me a quick second. Oh yeah, Sean Porter and Berto are fighting in NYCL Showtime on the undercard of that. Jamel Charlo defending his junior middleweight belt against Hatley. With that, given that Hatley on the verge of his title shot is suing Don King. Luis Ortiz is fighting on that card as well.
And Oscar Valdez
right,
out at StubHub, baby.
Right. Top-ranked pay-per-view is happening. Oscar Valdez is fighting, defending his belt. Gilberto Ramirez, Jesse Magdaleno, and also on that card, Shakur Stevenson is making his professional debut. So we will talk about all those bouts. So for Gil from Communities Digital News, Guts for Corruption in Boxing, Scorsese of the Lion's Den, Daniel of the Inscriber, both from Truth and Facts in Boxing. I am your host, Michael. This has been episode 165 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you next time. Rest in power. Rest in power, Charlie Murphy.
Charlie Murphy!